to the comic books. Hello and welcome, I am Joshy, and today we are going to talk about how comic books pretty much saved my life. So, growing up in elementary and then even middle school, I had really bad learning disabilities, and I think it has a lot to do with the scar tissue that's in my brain from the water in the brain when I was 2 months old. Nonetheless, I couldn't read like a normal child, and it was very apparent, to me at least, when other kids would read and they would just blip, 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 blip. And then me, I'm like, the fall came to the words had. I know. Had. But, like, not even joking, the word had really would elude me every time I looked at it. Don't know why. I knew what the word was. I knew how to spell it. Everything. But whenever I would go to read it, it would just, like, not come out. It would just, I would just look at it and I'm just like, what are you? What word are you? And, growing up, most kids get bullied for stuff like that, and I did, of course. Bullies, gotta love them. Yeah. But when I finally actually understood that there was something more wrong with me, I didn't know until like high school. You know, a lot of teachers kind of saw it, but when you go to a public school, they kind of throw you to the wayside because there's other students, they don't have time to one-on-one you, and if they do, you're going to be in like a special program, which I was, and even in that, you're kind of still left behind. It's a very horrible system. Well, at least back then. I don't know what it is now, but when I got into middle school, I realized that my 2s and my 6s were backwards because the way I write my 2s, the way I write my 6s, that's backwards to you right now, but whatever. Anyway, they look the same, or sometimes I would switch it up and I'd do a 2 like this and then a 5. So like 2s and 5s would get mixed up. Sometimes I'd write a 3 and an 8. I still do it. Like sometimes I'll write an H instead of a 4. I know that's upside down, but hey, it happens. There's a lot of other things, letters and numbers. The way I speak, sometimes I will say things that are completely backwards, or not backwards, just like the first letter on each one. Yeah. Dyslexia is fun. And then what I call the other one is numberlexia, which is not a word. It's still dyslexia. When I got to high school, the teachers kind of still were the same way. I went to a public school, and there was more people there. There was well over, I don't even know how to count those. Maybe 10,000. And you'd have like 150 in each class, and it was just overcrowded. I couldn't think, and ironically, my elementary bully was there. Hadn't seen him for a while, but it was hard to deal with that kind of situation, and I didn't realize that I had other issues brewing, I would say, like anxieties and depressions and stuff like that, and it was starting to kick in about that time. So I dropped out. I didn't want to go back. And I went down this dark path, but I did fortunately go back to school, and I got to go to a different high school, which was great. It was an alternative school. There was only 150 people in the whole school, and there was like 12 people in a classroom, maybe a little bit more, in your advisory. So the advisory teacher kind of saw that I had this potential just brewing inside of me, I guess, and she encouraged me to write more and to do other stuff, but I kind of got hooked on the computer more than anything, and I would just sit there and, I don't know, look at pictures of stuff. Not like porn or anything, because it's a school and literally everyone's right there. But something happened to me in 1994. There was a cartoon that changed my life, actually. I'm going to say changed my life only for the fact that when it was canceled, it pushed my mind into a different place. And that was the Spider-Man cartoon in 1994. When it got canceled in, I think it was 1997, 1996, I was very curious on the very last episode, because if you've ever seen it, you know that there is, like, all these other Spider-Men, and I was very interested in Spider Carnage. I was like, who is Spider Carnage? He's not technically Peter Parker, and he's a clone, and I'm like, wait, what's going on here? I just want to know more. And when I got onto the internet, I looked him up, and I was like, okay, I need to know more. I just need to know more. And that moment opened my eyes to comic books, because that's where it came from, was a comic book. I didn't know that. I was a very naive kid, you know? So when I actually learned that, I was like, Mom, I want to go to a comic book shop and I want to buy some comic books. And she was totally down for it, because she's the kind of mom that understood that if I liked something, it was a good thing. Like, she got me a microscope once because I was into science, and she got me just, you know, things like that. We were poor, so I don't know where she got this. It was like a 99-cent store, kind of cheap microset. I didn't care. It was amazing. But we went to the comic book store, and we didn't have enough money, a lot of money, so she gave me like $10 or something. So I think I just bought one comic book. I want to say I bought 3, but I don't remember the other 2. The only one I do remember was Peter Parker Spider-Man number 97. You know, I read it, and it's I think it's the final chapter is what it's called, because I think they were going to do a soft reboot and go back to 0 and 1 blah 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 with the series, and it was right before the Gathering of the Five, where Norman Osborn gets more insanity and Maddie gets her powers. But it was amazing. It was this amazing feeling. I started to read this comic book, and normally when I pick up a book or something, I start reading, I get very bad dyslexia and all this other stuff. Like, the words start to, like, ramble and move, and it's just very horrible, and it's not a very good experience. So when I picked up the comic book and I started reading it, I didn't realize I was done with it. I read right through, and yeah, I know it's only like, I don't know, 20 pages maybe, but maybe less than that. I don't even know back then how much that was. I could always look. I'll put it down there. Boop. But yes, it is easier to read, but it actually took my attention away from my dyslexia, and I actually would read each panel, boom, 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 and I enjoyed it. And it actually got me to read other comic books, and I started collecting, and, you know, I still collect to this day. Like, I love my Spider-Man, even though that's not technically Spider-Man. His name is Joe Wade, whatever. But, like, I love my comic books, and I just bought these ones because Ben Reilly's in it. And most people don't like the Clone Saga, but all these people just, like, knock on comic books. Oh, comic books are horrible for society. That's society. I don't know what that is. Society. But, and quite honest, they helped me to become better at almost everything in life, because they gave me confidence that I could read. I still couldn't read out loud as well, but I could read now better in a comic or in a regular book. I read The Lost World fully through, which I know it's not hard, but for me it was. The Strand, I believe. Yeah, I read that straight through, which was cool. I liked that book. And some other ones, but it gave me the confidence to actually be able to do that kind of stuff, which when you're 13, 14 years old and you've gone through life thinking you're never going to do something, and then all of a sudden you're doing it, it's a good feeling. It's life-changing. And honestly, I believe it saved my life, along with some other stuff that saved my life at that point. But they were one of the things that gave me more meaning. and I enjoy that. Uh, to the extent that by being able to read, I learned how to do HTML, and I was very obsessed with the Spider-Man's different costumes, and I made a website, and for the most part, it was based just on that. And I'll throw a link down there. I'll put a picture up here of what it looks like. But this is old school HTML. It's not like new stuff with JavaScript and all this other bullshit. It was just, it opened my mind to all this new stuff, and like I learned to code HTML, which is, again, it's not as hard as a lot of other coding like C++ or stuff like that at that time. But it was still something, okay? It was something that I couldn't do previously. And like I said, I loved getting in and figuring out how things work. So I learned how a web page works, just because of comic books. Because I wanted that knowledge. I wanted to learn. And it was so great. So I think that the stigma that's on comic books should be taken away for the most part. Yes, I will say there are some schmutty comic books out there. Even Batman can get to that point. Just know your demographics for each comic book, and then you'll be fine. Like, don't give detective comic books to a 2-year-old. Yeah, here, read this. It's about drugs. Batman's throwing a batarang into someone's eye. We're good. Even Spider-Man has its limits of, how young they should read. But they do have younger comic books for that, like Scooby-Doo, older Scooby-Doo ones, or Looney Tunes. They even have Super Friends and Superhero from Marvel. I can't remember what it's called, but it's, little chibi-looking characters, and they go and save a cat or something. I don't know. I've never read those, but they do have different comic book for different demographics. Keep your adult ones with your adult ones, man. No kick-ass, alright? But if your child does have something like I did, or still do, technically it doesn't go away from me, but I don't know if it ever does, give them something more than the pressures of a book. I'm sorry, but that doesn't always work. Oh, if you're going to learn how to read, you're going to read this book. You're going to read it. No, they're not. They will resist it at every moment. Maybe the comic book will help them to read the book like it did for me. Just some advice, I guess, from me. I mean, this is what this channel is. So, with that, I am going to get going. Like I said, I'm going to show you that website down below. It's quite funny. Oh no, I already showed it. What am I saying? Notify button thing. Like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what your favorite comic books are. So, mine will always be Spider-Man. And What Ifs. Oh man, I love What Ifs. Because I like alternate dimensions. I love the idea of taking your character and throwing them into something different. Which is great. Because I think about that in life normally. I do like the New Warriors, like I was just showing you. I like tons. But, like, Spider-Man is my man. That sounds so bad. But, yeah, Spider-Man. People started calling me Peter Parker. The spectacular flannel man. Which I didn't take as an insult. I was like, alright. And...